Perfect fit closets. How to use tall corner modules. Today we're going to talk about tall corner modules that are angled, tall corner modules that are radial, and the use of two corner module or two tall modules combining them together. The most cost-effective way will be option C. And there's different varieties and different reasons why we use the different types of modules, mainly due with the actual space, the application, as well as the client. I have a 120-inch left wall, 120-inch back wall, 120-inch right wall, and a 90-inch return wall. I'm going to go ahead and create elevations for all of them. And we're going to use the split screen today. In our earlier videos, we spoke about wall modules as well as tall modules, and we want to use the elevation to actually drag and drop. For our corner modules, we're going to be primarily using the top view. 2020 is fantastic by having us use a split screen. In our local browser, I'm going to select our catalog, PFC Canada. We're going to double click on our modules, and below our stackable wall tall are our tall corner modules. We can see the information illustration here. Our corner modules requires 3 panels, 1, 2, and 3, as well as a top and bottom. I'm going to use option 1 on the left, option 2 on the right, and option 3 down below here. I'm going to go ahead and drag a tall corner module. I'm going to left click and I'm going to drag it in. Instead of the elevation view, I'm going to go to the by top view. I'm going to go to the corner that I want to place this at. So I'm going to go anywhere around this corner area here. It doesn't have to be exact as long as you're inside this placement zone here. I'm going to drop my tall corner module once I see my magnet, and a new dialog box appears. I'm going to right click on the illustration just so I can see it a bit better. We purposely made the top shelf angled and the bottom shelf radial. This way, it gives the designers the different idea of they can do one or the other or a combination. Typically, the most common area is you'll use either all radial shelves or all angled shelves. So let's take a look at our properties. Height standard is 83 and 15/16. If we click on the up button, we can expand this to a maximum of 107 and 7/8. So this is going to be a one piece with a maximum of 107 and 7/8. And this is the exact same height restriction for our tall modules. And we can go as low as 12 and 1/8 inch. Let's keep this as standard 83 and 15/16. Again, we are using the 32 millimeter European system, where the center of every lying boring hole is 32 millimeters. The front hole from the front gable to the line boring hole is 37 millimeters. And last but not least, the very top hole is 10 millimeters from the edge to the first hole, as well as the bottom. We have 10 millimeters from the very bottom to the first hole, using 5 millimeter pilot holes. Module depth is 14 inches. We'll keep it the standard 14 inches, and we can certainly have presets for different depths, and we can go custom all the way to 30 inches deep. The deeper panels that you do, the wider the module has to be. So for example, if I make this 24 inches depth, and this is a 28-inch wide module, look at the space opening that I have. If I can increase the width, my opening has now increased. So for this to apply, make sure that your depth and width are adjusted accordingly. We'll keep this one back at 14 inches, and the default was 28 inches. The reason why this defaulted at 14 and 28 is this is the minimum that we believe would suffice the client for you and them to reach inside. I'm going to increase this to 30 inches, just for a little bit more room to access. Next is panel corner wall. Right now, I have 3 panels, left, middle, and right. The panel corner wall means that I have the panel on the left. You could actually see the perforations right here. I've got my panel, and it's notched like so. That's kind of typical angled wall, and the same thing will apply to your radial wall. Right now, the panel corner wall panel is on the left-hand side. Now I can certainly change that. And change this to right. Now my third panel is on the right side. There's no structural differences between the left and the right. We have the option of the left and right so that when you add a second module on the other corner, they can be symmetrical. One can be left and one can be right. We'll keep this one to the left for now. Again, it doesn't really matter. Panel on the left is fully drilled. Panel on the right is fully drilled. We'll keep that the way it is for now. And as always, you can make this one half drilled, so it's got a clean face. If you are joining modules together, I would leave these panels all fully drilled. And if you butt in a tall module, I would subtract the tall module panel and join it together. I have a shelf bottom and a shelf top. So again, we have bottom radius and the top angled. So let's make them all radius. I want the shelf bottom to be angled, and I want the shelf top to be angled. I can have a toe kick, which is typically the case, and the toe kick height. Default is 3 3/4, but I can certainly increase it to 5. So we're going up a hole, or we can go up another hole and have the actual a taller toe kick at 6 1/4. Again, we have versatility here. Maybe there's a baseboard, or maybe there's an obstacle in the way. So again, we just want to provide different options. We'll keep it at the default height of 3 3/4. We're going to click on OK, and that drops automatically. And you can see our angled wall. So let's label this as option 1. Option 1, angled. All right, so let's go ahead and drop in another tall corner module. I'm going to left click my tall corner module. We're going to drag it into our top view anywhere in the corner. We're going to drop it. A new dialog box appears. We'll do the exact same thing. We'll keep it at 83 15/16. We're going to increase the width to 30 inches. This time we're going to have the panel corner wall to the right. Again, we're just trying to make it symmetrical. This one was on the left. We'll make this one on the right. We'll keep it all fully drilled. Bottom shelf, we're going to keep it at radius. Shelf top, we're going to change it angled to radius. So now they're both radial. We do want a toe kick, and we want the same height of 3 3/4. We're going to drop it in. And now I have a radial corner. You can see the actual right panel here and left panel here. And we're going to call this as option 2. If your client has got a lot of space and they require extra shelving, option 1 is a fantastic idea. If you have a narrow walk-in closet and they still want the same concept as a corner shelf, option 2 radial looks very sleek, and you'll have a little bit more space. You lose a little bit of shelving, but if they want that concept, the radial shelving is phenomenal. Last but not least is we're going to combine 2 tall modules to create a corner here. That's going to be between elevation 3 and elevation 4. On elevation 3, I'm going to use the elevation section. I'm going to grab a tall module instead. I'm going to drag it into my elevation view, I see my magnet, go to my furthest working left and let go of my mouse. I'm going to right click the illustration so I can see it a bit better. And I'm just going to make this one 30 inches wide. We're going to keep it at 14 inches deep. We'll click on OK. And using my placement zone here, I'm going to say that I want this 0 inches to the wall to the right. Next, on my elevation 4, I'm going to rate another tall module. I'm going to drag a tall module into the elevation view. I see my magnet, go to my furthest working left and let go of my mouse. Right-click the illustration, and I'm going to make this one 30 inches. I'm going to click on OK and drop this. But instead of dropping this and connecting it right to the actual module itself, I'm going to tell the program that I want this 28 inches from the left wall. I'm going to hit enter, and now I have a clearance. The question that we get asked a lot is, why would you give it 28-inch clearance? Well, I'll tell you why. So let's go ahead and populate these modules, and let's pretend there's shelves as well as hanging rods. So let's pretend that I've got a shelf right here. We're going to populate this with a cleat here, a shelf there, and double click our categories, double click accessories, double click on rods, and I'm going to put a closet rod here for a long hang. You can see in green the protrusion of how much space that is. So we have the hanging rod here like so, and this is how much clearance we're going to need for our clothes. We'll do the same thing on elevation 3. We're going to put a double hang here instead. Go to my categories, parts, we're going to grab a cleat and drop one in there, and we're going to grab one fixed shelf. All right, so now let's just move that closet rod up just ever so slightly. But you can see from the top view, I have now my closet rod that's going to be protruding out. If we look at elevation 4, we can actually see how much clearance you're going to need for the rod. The rod will typically look like this. If the closet rod is right here, the actual hanger is going to look like this. Because I've given it 28 inches of space, the client can now access this whole entire section here. Now, if I move that, this and go closer and butt it in together, so now my clearance is now 22 inches of space. Well, now my client cannot access or have any variance whatsoever to reach for those corner clothes. I can make this one 24 inches to my left wall, but you can see that it's still a little bit tight. It's going to be very difficult. If you're working with tight spaces and the client is adamant, this will work as a bare minimum. However, they'll still need to subtract all the clothes in the farthest left section here to access their clothes on the right. So this is only great if the customer is adamant and they're okay with subtracting their clothes. Maybe they're just running out of space. But in preference, the minimum that should be required is 28-inch clearance, so they can still reach in and access their clothes without interfering and subtracting everything. This is option 3, is going to be the most popular option and the most cost-effective. So we have our 3 sections here. We've got option 1, angled corner module, option 2, radial corner module, and option 3, and the most common, is to use 2 tall modules together. We can certainly add bridge shelves to close the gap if you wish, and we do have a different video on how to do that. I can quickly show you on our double-click our categories, parts, shelves. In our shelves, we have bridge shelf. Bridge shelves are always 3 inches extra, and you will need a camming tool. The camming tool is from Hafele. It's a one-time purchase, and it ranges to roughly about $250 to $300 roughly. I can left-click my bridge shelf, I can drag it in, and we can connect it like so. If I right-click on the properties itself, we can go to attributes. I know this is 14 inches, but if we take a look at our variables, it's 14 inches plus 3 inches. Again, there'll be some cutting involved, and you will need the recamming tool for that. So that's certainly an option as well. I can certainly add another bridge shelf here, and I can certainly add a bridge toe kick, like so. And so forth. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and talk about these two corner modules. This is our angled corner module, and this one is going to be our radial corner module. How do we add our shelves? All we need to do is go into our categories, double-click our parts, go into shelves. Below shelf fixed and shelf adjustable, slanted shoe fences, bridge shelves, glass shelves, we have right corner fixed shelf, left corner fixed shelf, right corner shelf adjustable, and left corner shelf adjustable. Let's go ahead and add a fixed shelf in the middle of both of them. I'm going to go ahead. I know that this one is going to be left. We had a left panel here and we had a right panel here. I cannot interchange them. I can take my right corner fixed shelf. I can try putting it in here, but look what's going to happen for my right. It's not going to match. I can click on OK, and it's not going to let me do anything here. I know that this is the left corner shelf fix that's needed, so I can now click on left corner fix shelf on my local browser. I'm going to left click and drag it into my elevation. Once I see my magnet, I'm going to let go of my mouse. A new dialog box appears. I'm going to right click the illustration so I can see it a bit better. General style, it's currently set to angled. Well, yes, this is angled, and this is what we want. If I select the drop-down button, I can click on radius, and we'll do that for the radial corner. We're talking about the angled, so we're going to click on the angled shelf. It's preset at 14 inches because this is a 14-inch deep module. We'll click on OK, and we're just going to move our cursor around and place it into the middle or wherever we think. I can grab my line-to-line annotation, inside module to inside module, and double check my spacing. So I'm going to just grab this and just drop it down a couple holes and make sure it's perfectly lined up. I can do the same thing for my left corner shelf adjustable, drag it into my module. Once I see my magnet, I'm going to let go of my mouse, right click the illustration. I do want it angled. We'll click on OK, and again, we can drop it in like so. We can take a look at a perspective view. So I've got one adjustable shelf and one fixed. And we can see that we have our corner module angled. Okay, let's go ahead and populate the next module. This is going to be our right corner. So we're going to take a right corner shelf fixed. We're going to drag it into our elevation. Once I see my magnet, I'm going to let go of my mouse. Instead of angled, I'm going to click on the drop down, select radius, select OK, and drop it in. Again, I'm taking my line-to-line annotation and centering it however I feel necessary. Last but not least, right corner shelf adjustable. I'm going to left click, drag it into my elevation. I see my magnet. I'm going to let go of my mouse, select the drop down of radius shelf, keeping it at 14 inches deep, and dropping it in like so. And I can certainly add more if I'd like. And as you know, here are the tall modules on elevation 3 and elevation 4. And these are just regular shelf fixed and shelf adjustables and so forth. One thing to note for my shelf adjustables, one thing to note for my tall corner modules is that if I want to share a panel, I would prefer that our designers subtracted the panel off tall modules or wall modules as opposed to subtracting the panels off corner modules. Corner modules are very special. They want to stay intact, but if you do want to share one, Here is an example for our first option 1 angled. I'm going to go ahead and double click our categories, modules. I'm going to grab a tall module. I'm going to drag it into my elevation view. Once I see my magnet, go to my furthest working left, let go of my mouse, right click the illustration. I'm going to make this one 30 inches wide. We do want this 14 inches deep. I'm going to subtract the panel on the right. We're going to click on OK. I'm going to drop it there for a moment here. So you can see that I've got my tall module, subtracted the panel on the right. I've kept my panel for my corner module, and now I'm just going to join them together. I'm going to left click on drag and manually move it over with my mouse and drop it like so. Go into the next module, left click once, and it's officially dropped. You've shared the panel successfully. We'll do that one more time. Let's click on the next module. This is a radial module. I'm going to left click my tall module, drag in my elevation, go to my farthest working left. Once I see my magnet, let go of my mouse. Now I'm going to right click my illustration. We're going to make this one 30 inches wide, subtract the panel on the right. We'll click on OK and drag and combine. Again, we spoke about tall corner modules on how to design using the tall corner modules angled, radial, and the use of 2 tall modules. This is the most cost-effective way. If you have any questions, please do contact us at support@perfectfitcanada.com.